All set. Go ahead, Dave.
All righty, meeting call to order. Today is Tuesday, April 6th. It is now 6 p.m. Town Council meeting via Zoom to discuss public workshop for fiscal year 22 budget.
All right, Councilman Lichardi,
Here.
Councilman Messier,
Here.
Council Vice President Williamson,
Here.
and Council President Goslin.
Yeah.
Noted
Alrighty.
that
Go ahead, Kristen.
quorum on record.
Good evening, everyone.
You want to give us a brief update?
Sure. So since we last met last week, we had some more updates to our assessed values for the tangible tax. We lost about 5.5 million in value. And we also, in thinking about it over the week, I decided that we should probably keep our collection rate at the 96.8, given we still have another year of uncertainty ahead of us. Given that, I revised the spreadsheet that I had sent out, well, that Mark actually had sent out, to kind of narrow it down just to the essential items that the budget can be amended by and still keep our 0% tax rate increase. So hopefully everyone had I know I sent it out late in the day, but hopefully everyone had a chance to review that. And then if anyone has any questions, we can go forward, and then we can either vote on the whole thing, kind of like we did last year on one of our documents, or take them one at a time and do votes, whatever method you guys choose.
So Kristen, what I was going to do, right now we have one participant in the crowd for attendees, and everybody else is on the panel. So what I'll do is I'll go through each department page by page on this and ask if there's any questions or concerns. And if they want, the council can vote on page by page. Does that sound fair?
Yep, that's fine.
Does anybody from the council have any questions or concerns before we move on? And the attendee in the audience, if you have any concerns or questions, just raise your hand. I'll keep a close eye on it, and we'll let you speak if you wish. All right, so we'll start off with the first page would be revenues. Any questions or concerns on revenues?
No, but Kristen, you just said you're going to go back to the 96.8%.
Correct.
Yes, so that will
For the
change.
collection rate.
And I think, you know
So
what,
that will-
I think that's a good idea, given the fact that we're not sure. And Sal maybe at some point can tell us how far along we are in recording and getting all the tangibles in, but we've seen some wild swings in the last 2 weeks, so we certainly don't want to be caught short there.
Right. And that change is kind of a formula in my spreadsheet. Once I make that change, it flows through.
All right, no questions on revenues? Okay, town manager? Just gotta get this view. Hold on 1 second. No questions for town manager. Town planner? No questions for town planner. Personnel department? No questions there. Town council? No questions there. Town clerk? No questions there. Board of canvases? Now, Kristen, does this reflect, I know we had discussion last time about looking at everybody's stipend. Did we?
Mhm. So I went, so as in particular for Board of Canvassers, Sarah and I had a conversation, and with the what she's keeping in election and other expenses for fiscal year 22, she felt that if it was increased to $50, that she could cover it in that budget.
And knowing there could be a possible special election, is that going to be the 21 budget or the 22 budget?
A special election for the new councilman.
Yeah, because that'll be taking place in July. If we
If
do.
it's July, then it's fiscal year 22.
Okay.
So if I may, I think a lot of it will be absorbed in this year because of the fact that the largest expense is probably the early voting, the mail ballots, the actual preparation for the election, to run the election on the election day will fall in fiscal year 22. That is a minimal cost, maybe $1,500.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mark did join us. He is on the panel now.
Can I just ask a quick question? Is or Sarah, is the lower cost because it would take place at town hall and not at like a off-site, like not some of the other elections would take place?
Yeah, that is our plan right now, is to do it at town hall. So, I mean, depending on how you guys decide to do things today, we'd be looking at a possible primary. I think hold on, I have the dates, maybe May. And then it would be 20 days of early voting leading up to a special election on July 6th. And I mean, these are all hypothetical dates, but like I had mentioned, most of the expense of running the special election will fall under this fiscal year.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. And oh, I'm sorry, I don't think I answered your question completely. Yes, we do plan on asking the Board of Elections to hold it at town hall due to the fact that it's just Ward 5.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Legal? Thank you. Probate? Nothing. EMA? Nothing. Town sergeant should be fairly easy. General government. Any questions or concerns in there?
General government, there is a line in my spreadsheet to adjust the fund balance line by $75,000. I don't know if I just want to make sure everyone saw that.
The fund balance line?
Yep, where we
Is it-
put funds aside when we have negotiations.
So is that 450 down to 375?
It's 450.
The other
to
way.
5. Other way.
520, I'm sorry, 525.
Mhm.
David, I have a question, and I don't know if it falls under general government or where it would fall. I know last year, pre-pandemic, and this is probably something that should have been brought up previously, but we had talked about potentially giving the Arctic Village Association something as a line item in our budgets, but obviously last year it got pushed to the wayside. Is that something that could be brought up at this point or later on?
I wouldn't put it in general government. I'd probably put that, Kristen, I'd probably go in either Parks and Rec or,
So is that for the flower?
Correct.
For
Yep.
the
Yes.
the flower? Yeah, that could definitely go in Parks and Rec.
Okay.
Yeah, I
I'll say-
think actually Mark in his email recommended perhaps DPW trees and beautification or so, I forget exactly.
Yeah, you're right. You did.
Right,
Yeah.
either one of those would be fine.
Okay.
Finance Department. Kristen, the 25,000 is still for the part-timer you have in here?
Yes.
And I am going to pick on that a little bit, and I'm going to explain why.
Okay.
And it's no fault of yours, and I know the town manager is requesting it. So I have my reservations, and I just want to speak my piece on this. When our former finance director came in, he was the finance director and tax collector. And he came to us and asked us to hire a tax collector so he can have more time to do his finance side of it. And the council did that. The previous councils did that, and they went along with it. And we still now have a finance director and a tax collector. So, but I know if I sent out a couple of emails asking what certain positions are doing or their job description. And I know that has to be negotiated if you have them do different types of work or whatever. So that's why I'm kind of looking at that part-timer and being, like I said, I'm reserved on it, but I understand it in both aspects of it, but,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm only one person, so.
The position did exist when I got here.
Mhm.
And then when Bob Champagne retired, I thought, you know, let's try and do this without that extra expense. But there's so many federal guidelines and so many different updates coming down the pike yearly that to have that person to help update purchasing policies, you know, policies that we can have in writing, manuals and things like that. I think it's important, but I understand that we're under budget constraints as well. So it's whatever you guys decide.
And that's why I supported it as well. It is a small amount of money comparatively speaking, but I do see there are some needs there in order to help us resolve some procurement issues and set up some best practices and get some things properly codified and laid out in a policy manual, or free up Kristen in order to help facilitate that. And as I said, I mean, it's a part-time position. If it works out and is serving us well, it can continue. And if it doesn't, then it's an easy one or easier one to remove in the future.
I think to
Um,
follow up on what David said, I think we just want to make sure that the person we get actually is going to fulfill the needs that we have, and make sure that we define what those are very clearly. Again, I'm not sure a part-time clerk is going to be able to necessarily write policy for you, but so I think you need to.
Yeah, I was looking for more of someone who's been in the accounting field, maybe who's retired and wants to work part-time, you know, 19 hours a week or 15 hours a week, you know, not someone that, definitely not someone who isn't experienced with accounting, definitely looking for someone in the accounting field, looking for some extra work.
So it almost sounds like it might cross over, not just from the finance world, but maybe into some other duties as well. But that's a story for another day. Yeah.
I'm not for adding any new positions this year. I'm trying. I still think we need to get on a firm base before we go forward. Maybe next year, but I'm not for that this year.
You're on mute, David.
Hey, Messia, do you have any questions or concerns on that position?
I mean, I could see the need for it. I mean, if we can still stay at that 0%, then I'll go along with the town manager and his request for this position. And like Mark said, you know, it's something where I mean, again, my only concern would be that we're stuck in, it's as long as it's not something we're stuck into. I know in the past we've had decisions we've made. I know this is a little bit different situation, but you know, where we've made decisions and then we get stuck in them. So if it's something that it doesn't work out and we can get out of it, then I don't see it's a huge risk.
All right, I will take a roll call vote for budget as is, finance department with the part-timer included. Councilman Licciardi,
No.
Councilman Messier,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Yes,
Solicitor, can I ask a question? Because this might be the first time this has ever happened.
What happens if there's a tie?
What happens if there is a tie?
It does not pass.
And Kristen, you're feeling, and Mark, I'm gonna go by what you're saying here. You definitely feel, the two of you feel that this position is desperately needed.
I wouldn't go out and say desperately, but I think it would satisfy a need, or at least my desire and Kristen's, to formalize some things and get us on target with some best practices that I think have kind of appeared over time to, you know, maybe be a bit lacking. And I'd like to take advantage of that. And like I said, this seems like a lower risk, good opportunity to take advantage of that.
Council can also review the position again in 6 months to see if things are working out. I mean, there's no guarantee that the position is going to be held open forever. So if you want to just diary it for 6 months to see how things work, and in that way, finance director can give you an update, manager can give you an update to see whether or not you want to keep it going forward.
I'll vote yes.
yeah. What I was going to say is it's not a lifetime commitment that we're making
Right.
to the person. So if they're productive and it's worthwhile, I would agree, keep it, but.
All right, I voted yes.
No tie.
Thank you.
Tax collector. Tax assessor. No questions. Board of Assessment. No questions. Police Department.
Actually, do we need to point out that the Board of Assessment you added to that? Is that correct, Kristen?
Yes, as on the spreadsheet that I sent. Now, I still don't know, are you guys gonna vote on this spreadsheet as a whole or by
So-
department? Because if so, then we have to go back to general government to vote on that.
So what I was going, if there's no concerns or questions, we'll just vote on the budget at the end. If there's any changes or concerns of that specific department, we can vote on that. And then, so you can make that change, and at the end, I can say with all changes made, we can go ahead and vote on the budget, can't we?
So you want to go department by department and then look at this spreadsheet that was sent out late in the afternoon and
Yeah,
bless that
because
as well? Yes.
Unfortunately, I honestly did not get a chance to even review that spreadsheet yet.
Okay.
So when we get to each department, do you want me to
That would be,
talk
Yes.
about what's on the spreadsheet? Okay.
Yes.
So yes, Board of Assessment and Review, in looking at what they get paid, they were getting paid $30 per meeting. So to bump it up by $20 times 5 people times 12 meetings was $1,200. So in the spreadsheet, proposing an increase of the Board of Assessment and Review by $1,200.
any questions or concerns on that? Any questions or concerns on police? Fire?
So fire is also on this spreadsheet, proposing to increase the turnout gear by 18,700. and the SCBA by 7,000.
What is the SCBA?
I always want to say scuba, but I know it's not
Self-contained
scuba.
breathing apparatus. I'll help the chief out.
That's it, yeah.
Self-contained breathing apparatus. So that's for the maintenance and equipment for all the packs. They have to be flow tested every year. And every so often we have to get the bottles hydrostatically tested. And so that line item is for the maintenance for that.
Chief, I know your audio is a little rough, but I think I heard it was basically to refill the tanks and maintain them.
Yes.
Thank you.
And they have to be flow tested every year.
That's safety. Any other questions on fire? Department of Public Works. And this is where.
I have a
Go ahead.
question as a whole. Are we still proposing a 0% tax increase with all these additions?
Yes.
Okay.
This is where I see trees and beautification has $5,000 in it. Is that for the Arctic Redevelopment Commission with the, I mean, not the Redevelopment Commission, AVA for the plants? I see 5,000 in there already, but.
I'd verify that with Don if that was his original intent, but it could certainly be used for that.
Don, you on?
We have the Patuxent River Authority. We give $5,000 per year. Maybe it might be easiest just to put it right with that. 5,000 to PRA, 5,000 to the AVA. That way they can use it for what they want.
Where is that in the budget?
It's in general government.
General government?
Yep. About 2/3 of the way down under unemployment expense.
Okay, yeah. Well, Kristen, where do you think it should be for your office then?
You know, if we're paying for the baskets or we're reimbursing them for the baskets, I guess it could stay in DPW. If we're just going to issue them a check for them to buy the baskets or do what it is they're going to do with them, then I would say you want it to continue on a yearly basis, then you may want to do what Jason suggested.
I just want to point out, I know we didn't give it to them last year. They did purchase some baskets.
Right.
They do have a lot of baskets. So I'm not sure if this is all for baskets.
No, yeah, it's not just the baskets. It's like the flowers they need to get every year. And I'm not sure what other things that they need to get every year. Again, this was the ask for last year, but I know at the time, before all the pandemic, I know that we had talked about having it as a reoccurring. Yeah, I mean, they do a lot of things, and I think Barbara's goal is, if they had a bigger, if they had a budget line every year, that they'd be able to do some other things in town too. They also, the RVA puts together when we were allowed to have events. They did the Christmas tree lighting. They're heavily involved in organizing the Earth Day cleanup. Those snowflakes that Barbara Tabak put into Arctic, and I know that if she would have money, there would be more things that she would do. And I think, I think we all agree she does a wonderful job out there and helping to make that downtown area look better. And she even extended it, a couple of years ago, where some of those banners she did all the way down to Horgan School. So it's even a little bit beyond Arctic.
I think it'd be easier just to say, here's $5,000. Just like the Patuxent River Authority does. This is where your $5,000 went. It went on cleanups. And maybe they should be more forthcoming of, we purchased a couple chainsaws here. We had to pay for this spot or whatever it may be, and get an accounting of where that money went. And that would be more on our end. But I think it'd be the same thing as the Arctic Village is just don't hold their hands, don't micromanage. Here's the 5,000. If you need 20 baskets and you have them and you want to move on and do something different with it, just do it. I mean, I really, let them build it up, and the goal is obviously to make Arctic better and more vibrant, so they may not need 5,000 every year. They may save it up and get it to 8, 12, whatever it may be, and do something bigger. But I think it's just our contribution. I think to me, it's easier that way. But it's more on Kristen because she's going to be accounting for all this. So it's up to you.
If you think it's going to be recurring, I mean, I think that's the key.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. I mean, that's the goal.
I think it should be reoccurring unless we get to a point where we get to those years and years become lean again, and we have to start looking at where we have to cut over and over, and that 5,000 may become less.
No, of course, but I think the goal, if we're able to, the goal is going to be to have it reoccurring.
Right.
Without a doubt, it's definitely a good touch to the town, and I totally agree with it. We just want to keep a focus on what it actually is costing, and and making sure that it is being spent to be beautifying West Warwick. So, but I agree. It's just a matter of where you want to put it. If you want to put it in Parks and Rec, or if you want to put it in general government. If it's recurring, I'd put it in general government under the Patuxent River Authority.
I would agree with that. That's probably where it needs to be if it's going to be recurring. Do we get an accounting of how the Patuxent River Authority spends that 5,000 every year?
I don't think so.
They used to come in, request a meeting with Ernie. I remember meeting with them at least once since I've been here, and they kind of gave us a little presentation of what they did. I haven't been involved in a meeting with them in a couple of years, but I'm not sure if Ernie did or not.
I don't think
bad
Barbara.
idea. Ask them. I don't know.
You can make it
know-
conditional.
Hold on, one at a time.
I'm sorry, you can make it conditional upon them presenting an annual budget, or to be transparent, what they're spending taxpayer dollars on. So if you want to schedule an annual presentation from each of these groups, that's certainly within your right.
And that would be probably between Kristen and Mark having that meeting with them. Shouldn't be that
I don't
big of a
think
meeting.
I don't think Barbara would have a problem with that at all. And so,
Right, the manager and the finance director can then report back to the council via a memo. And if there are any questions, you can request that they appear in front of you.
Can I say something on this 5,000?
Sure, Don.
Okay, it was, Ernie and I talked about trying to beautify, again, West Warwick. And it wasn't with any other organization. I have done this in every other community I've been in, a small pot of money just to turn around and, put a flowering stand. In fact, I can think of Pulaski Street. We've got a couple of places where we'd like to put a couple flowering pots. There's a couple places where we'd like to replant trees because we've taken some trees down. It's just a general fund. And the time, and I haven't spent a penny of it this year yet, because the time for planting is May and early June. So we would end up looking at doing something here in the very near future.
All right, so the 5,000 in your budget is for you to beautify West Warwick.
Exactly.
So we're actually saying 5,000 more for the AVA to work on River Point up to Arctic for us.
Correct.
So we want to make sure that you guys communicate so you don't try to duplicate work. You're right. Arctic Village should be that's a separate $5,000. You're right, Don.
And we will be putting her baskets up here probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, as soon as we get that coordinated.
All right. So we'll put that in the general government on another line item, and it'll be for AVA right underneath the PVA.
So do you want to vote on that now, or vote on that with the add it to the spreadsheet?
We can wait to the end.
Okay.
So maybe this is the time, and I know Kristen and I had this conversation. I mentioned at the last meeting that $1,500 we talked about for the watering of the police memorial fund and where that would go, just so we don't miss it somewhere along the way. Is that a general
So,
government addition as well? Or is that a town council thing? Is that you tell me, or is it a police thing?
Well, again, so are we gonna be just reimbursing them for that? Or are we gonna be paying the water bills directly? Or
My
what was the
understanding was
plan
that
for
they
that?
have a separate meter at this
Mhm.
point in time, and it was really installed for the sewer plant, but it's still a separate meter telling you how much water is being used for the memorial.
Okay,
So I don't know the answer to that, Kristen. We can certainly get the answer to that. I just don't want to miss it.
So here's my suggestion. If we're gonna do 1,500, we'd say up to 1,500. They would have to supply us copies of those bills.
Okay.
And we'll give up to $1,500. Is that fair enough? We'll put it in the budget
So
as
would you want-
1,500.
so you would want to add another line for FOP or
Police memorial.
police memorial?
Yeah, I'd also like to add, I did go and look at the site with Kent County Water, and the meters are set up correctly. It is a deduct meter, so they are being charged appropriately.
Thank you, Don. Any other questions on those items? And we're adding that to general government.
Yes.
Any questions on town engineer? Street lighting. Building officials office. Zoning. Senior center. Housing board, which is already an increase from,
By 2650.
yeah. Library. Parks. Now, Mark, I know you sent a spreadsheet with some parks adjustments on there. Do you want to go over that?
Those were removed in the second spreadsheet.
Okay,
When I think when Kristen got information that we actually had a change in the tangible, that it actually moved down.
all right,
The new spreadsheet,
Yeah.
you said, David, the new spreadsheet doesn't reflect those any longer.
all right. That's my fault because I don't have that.
No,
We wanted to-
that's okay.
Yeah, we were just trying to focus on safety and for what we were gonna adjust for.
Yeah. Debt service? Capital?
So on the spreadsheet, there are two capital items that were initially cut when we went through the process to deliver you the budget. Body cams, which, we were very hesitant to do, but we really wanted to deliver a solid, budget with the least tax increase as we could propose at the time. So I am proposing that we add back the 60,000 for body cams and also the $15,040 for hose for the fire department.
Any questions on that? I'm actually going to go back to library. I missed Colin's hand. He actually raised his hand, so. Colin?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Just a very quick question. I haven't seen the revised spreadsheet, so I'm assuming the fact that I haven't seen it means there's no amendment to our budget.
You're good, Colin.
Good. Okay, thank you.
I did not see any notes with amendment to your budget,
Okay, thank you very much.
unless it was on that late spreadsheet.
Nope.
No questions on capital, and we added those items that Kristen said. that's pretty much, I think, our budget. Do we have any questions or concerns on our budget?
Dave, I know we've passed this. I wasn't gonna say anything because I'm not quite sure if this is more of the sewer budget than it is our budget anymore. But it's still the sewer admin fees that become a revenue to us. One budget reflects the other. So, and we haven't discussed the sewer budget as a sewer commission yet. But maybe I'm not understanding the admin fees. It's the way I'm looking at it as a full-time equivalent. And I brought it up for 2 years. So, and I'm going to use Mark as an example. Is the town manager spending 30% of his time dealing with the sewer department, which is 1 full week out of every 3? And it's similar to the finance director and I believe HR. I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe HR is up there as well. I mean, if we're spending that much time dealing with the sewer department, then we get a problem.
So, Councilman, I know you and I had a brief conversation, and you know, I want to go back to this admin fee that you're talking about. And one of the things is when it was brought to us, it was brought to us as not as how much time that each department head spends down there. It was brought to us as a council that the amount of labor, the bills, Kristen, correct me, how many sewer bills actually go out in the town? It's close to 30,000?
Sewer bills, I had a conversation with Christine today. She said there was about 11,000. 11,000. We figured it out. It was probably about 35% of the bills, 35 or 40% of the bills are sewer.
So
that are bailed out in total.
So how many houses are in West Warwick? Sal?
I'm going to defer to Sal on that one.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Sal too. But Sal, how many houses are in West Warwick and how many businesses are in West Warwick?
We have approximately 800 businesses. There are 11,300 parcels. Out of that, we probably have about, say around 10,000 houses of some type. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And some obviously aren't on sewer, some might have cesspools still.
Right.
So we're about 11,000 bills that are being generated, and that's all being done and processed to the finance department. Is that correct, Kristen?
Yes, they are printed here. I believe Bev does come over to work on them, but as far as collections and maintaining the bills throughout the year, the finance department, the tax collectors work on that.
And that's how it was put to us, was that the sewer department actually, yes, it collects the sewer for the town, but it actually does no revenue for the town. And that's how it was put before the council years ago, that this is revenue to help offset the expenses for the downstairs departments to maintain. They didn't really present it to us as how much time each department had spent down there. And trust me, Mark, you probably do spend about 10 to 15% of your time down there. Kristen, you're probably dealing with 10 to 15% of the time, but that's not just the only factor in how much time is spent. It's also the factor of how much labor is being used to manufacture and also collect their bills. And that's the best of my knowledge on that.
No, I know, you and I talked. I understand what you're saying, but we're given a chart, and the chart basically says it's the position, all the money that comes out of that position, whether it's the pay rate, your amount of hours, all that. My question has been for 2 years, what is that position doing to justify? So I'm going to use Mark as an example. The town manager's position, spending 30% of his time, full-time equivalent time, dealing with the sewer department, the regional sewer department. So what is Mark doing for 30% of his time? So 1 week out of every 3 to justify getting paid a third of his salary from the sewer department. And if I'm wrong, I have no problem eating my words, but I can't get an answer. So, and then it leads to other questions. And one of my other questions is, and I don't know the answer to this, Tim may actually know, because it's a regional plant, is Coventry and Warwick and Situate and West Greenwich and Cranston, are they responsible for contributing a fee to this as well?
Whatever fees they're responsible for paying are in their individual agreements. There's nothing on top of that that they owe either by an hourly rate or by a weekly or monthly or quarterly or annual payment. So that anybody outside the town of West Warwick, that's already part and parcel of whatever monies they're paying to the town to belong to the the regional wastewater treatment facility.
Yep. Thank you. So back to my question is, because they brought it up to me at the sewer department as how come we're paying this amount of money, and I don't have the answer. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. And this is going back, 2 superintendents ago. So three superintendents ago. So I'm just looking for that answer. I mean, and I'll give another example. The time, and I don't know how this is calculated. The time that the town council as a sewer commission spends is a 0.10. Well, I believe that number is wrong. I can tell you it's wrong because it's been the same for like the 4 years I've been on the council. And I can tell you this year, I spent probably quadruple the amount of time with the sewer department and asking questions and handling issues and doing research. And I've never been asked what time I spent on it. And I know Mary Beth is most likely spent more time this year than last year. So that number should actually increase. So I don't know where the calculations, I can read a chart and I understand the math, but there needs to be justification behind that math. And I don't, that's what I've been asking for. So that gives me a hard time trying to vote yes on this budget and the sewer department budget because I don't feel I'm getting an answer.
So let me ask this question for Kristen. Right now, the town budget is proposing a 0% tax increase.
With our proposed amendments, yeah.
Yep. And the sewer department, are they proposing any type of increase for this year that you're aware of?
No
So
rate increase.
If we move that 300,000 to the sewer department, they end up with a surplus and the town would have to raise taxes probably about 0.5% to cover that $300,000.
Probably, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So just to go back to the hours worked, and I think the spreadsheet, I don't have it in front of me, so I apologize, but I think, and Jason, you can let me know, I think it's both the town manager and the finance director are at 30%. Is that correct?
I don't have it in front of me, Mary Beth, but it's around that.
I mean, and I think in the last couple of years, quite honestly, that's probably, certainly with the town manager, that's probably not all. You said 1 in 3 weeks. Well, if you how many hours do people work? 40 hours times 52 weeks, close enough. So what does that come down to? If are they spending 10 or 12 hours a week on the sewer plant? My guess is that's probably not that far off at this point in time. That's my guess. But again, not having done the calculation, I guess we could do it down and dirty and ask for that. But when you say 1 week in 3, it makes it sound like it's a lot more when you actually break it down into hours and how many hours a week. And I might suggest You're right about the town council. I know that I've spent a heck of a lot more than 10% on the sewer plant this year. But I think that at least in the last 2 years that I've been involved, I believe that more and more time has been spent in the town hall looking at what's happening at the sewer plant. So I bet 30% is pretty close. It might be a little high, but I bet it's pretty close. And I would suggest in the last 6 months, it might even be short. If you break it down to 10 or 12 hours a week, because my guess is that's probably really close. So.
Okay. Any other questions on that matter? So this is going to be actual, and then we're going to do, let me ask you now, before we vote on our budget, any questions or concerns with the school budget? I know Karen's here and no concerns on the school budget? And Civic Center budget, any questions or concerns on the Civic Center budget? I did bring up one via email today, and it was brought to my attention actually through the fire department. The water pressure up there, and I know Larry was requesting $5,000 for a water pump to increase the pressure up there. It's not only for showers or whatever, but it's also for toilets, showers, also water safety, sprinkler system, and whatever else. So, you know, I think that's something that we need to look at. If it's a public safety issue, that we should authorize $5,000 for that pump. And, you know, if anybody wants to speak on that.
Are you looking to add that to the Civic Center budget or to the general fund in capital?
That's a question too.
I have one question on the Civic Center budget. I don't know if Lori's on.
She's on.
Excuse me. And I'm just going to throw out round numbers. So if our expenses are 500,000, say, and our revenue is realistically, say 450, and we know going in, we have to put 500 to balance it out. But realistically, we know we're going to be short. Is there a plan to try and get some of that money to make it less of a deficit?
So I don't think that we have to worry about it running in the red this year. That's my honest opinion as of right now. As of doing all the bills through the end of March and doing all the revenue. So I don't think that's a question that we even need to ask at this point of this year.
How about next year?
No, I would, go ahead.
I'm just asking if there's a plan, because it doesn't seem like there is one, and it's very difficult to absorb that when it just seems to me that the common feeling is I'll just tap the town again and keep tapping the town, and there's still debt that needs to be repaid. So there's no plan for that, obviously. So
I guess I have a question. Do you understand the debt that is there? Do you understand where the debt did come from? So it's a debt that's being put on an enterprise fund that didn't exist. So the debt existed to the town because they own the property, but the enterprise fund didn't exist at the town. So it's basically like buying a business and it having debt, and now you're responsible for what the previous owner did in a roundabout way. I mean, again, I don't think that I don't think at this point we need to really worry about coming in the red this year. And if we're going to worry about the water pump, then put it on the Civic Center's budget for this year coming up. And I'm positive I will figure out a way to cover it.
I do have a hand up in the audience.
So I think that's the question that Jason was just asking. If need be, can you find a way to raise $5,000 needed for the water pump? I think that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth.
In the FY-22 budget, I mean, again, as we all know, the major needs is much higher than any of us would anticipate, and I don't ever foresee that kind of issue arising again. So I think that a lot of money was put into that line item that we won't ever have to worry about again.
I have a hand up. I do have a hand up in the audience. I'll let the individual speak. Derek, if you just state your name and address for the record.
Derek, 62 Andrews Ave. I wasn't going to talk tonight, but Kristen, what's the deficit? What does the Civic Center owe the town over, say, the past 5 years?
So it's an accounting adjustment, and it's called a due to, due from, and that number is about 950,000 right now.
Okay, so I'm sure we all have credit cards, and I'm sure some of us have maxed out credit cards. My biggest question is, if you got a credit card and you max it out, are you just gonna not pay it off, or are you just gonna wait till the debt collector comes? This is the same thing. You're 900 in the red, in my opinion, because you owe it to us, the taxpayers. To keep funding, it's great. But to say we're going to be running in the black, we're not going to run in the black because you still owe $900,000 to the town of West Warwick. So when does the 900? This is like Washington D.C. We just keep printing money. When does this Civic Center enterprise pay the taxpayers back? Or do we just keep giving and giving and giving? And then that number just keeps going up and up and up. At what point do we hit a roadblock and say, listen, we can't keep funding when we owe $900,000? That's a lot of money. I work hard for my money, and I'm sure everybody else listening and everybody else in this town that works hard for their money. To know that we're $900,000 in debt, but we're gonna run in the black. I'm not buying the black. I can buy a black pen and put black numbers in the boxes, but it's red. Until that 900 is paid off, it's red. So I'm not against you, Lori. This has nothing to do with you, but this is sickening. Every year we hear the same thing. We're going to fund the Civic Center. We're going to fund the Civic Center. We're going to fund the Civic Center. At what point do we say the Civic Center is going to pay the town back, or we're going to close the doors?
So can I just add one thing to that? The assets of the Civic Center belong to the town. So in total, the Civic Center has a positive net position. If we were to close those doors and sell those assets, we would get back the money that has been used to upgrade the facilities at the Civic Center.
If you lock those doors and you sold that property, you'll get more. You'll get in this market right now. You'll get more than $1 million for that property, which will pay the taxpayers back plus. Okay, so the assets right now, I mean, it's like a mortgage. How many times are you going to refinance before the bank says I can't give you no more? Same thing. So close the door.
So here's my question. Here's my question, Derek. This is my question to you. Are you understanding where majority of this money that the Civic Center owes to the town? Are you understanding where that number came from?
But I don't need to know where the money came from.
But you do though. So
no, I don't.
The Civic Center was privately rented out. Okay, so there was a private renter.
We've had this conversation. Me and David had this conversation. We're not talking about when the Civic Center was previously leased out to whoever that guy was.
Hold on. Let me interject here. So majority of that debt was when the town took it back over. $600,000 of that debt was when the town took it over. Okay, so let me point that out. Secondly, just last year, this town council had to negotiate and take that out of the union. And we did that, and the union negotiated with us on that matter. And yes, it was probably in the red last year, if I remember correctly. But you also got to remember, we had to follow contracts. We had to follow town, all their contracts. When people were here working 7 to 3 with nobody in the building. So we negotiated all that. This is the very first year without the union being in there. And with that being said, during COVID, when we weren't busy, and right now we're pretty busy up there, but when we weren't busy, we didn't have employees there working. They were able, because they're part-timers, we didn't have to have them come in and work, where according to the contract, they still had people coming in and working up till July 1 of last year. All that was going on. So, and also coming into this year, vacation times and everything else that everybody cashed out when they left also came out of the Civic Center. You also look at the debt service, not the debt service, the general needs that Lori pointed out. There's an issue that happened and it arose and it's being dealt with now, but that will not be in next year's budget. So to answer your question, Derek, yes, you're right. You can run into debt. And, you know, eventually if she starts paying and she's in the red and the Civic Center is in the black year after year, and they can start affording giving $50,000 a year back, it may not be next year paid it off. It's just like when you go out and buy an excavator, you're going to go buy it and you're going to have 5, 7, 10 years to pay it back, depending on the
But I pay mine off, that's the difference.
But again, that's what we're talking
So
about.
that's not even a close comparison. I have a bill every month from the bank and I pay that bill and that thing's paid off when it's supposed to be paid off.
But again, this is
we're going to keep doing, we're going to keep doing. When does that keep doing stop?
So let me point out another thing. Skip the enterprise fund in general. All right, we could take it back as a town and run it the way we want to run it. It's a public facility. It does public services. The children of this town, the parents of this town, if we mothballed that and sold that, do you know what they would do to us? They would be very upset. And Derek, you may disagree with me on that, but the parents utilize that facility, whether it's hockey, whether it's basketball, whether it's soccer, softball, every sporting town sports utilizes that civic.
Dave, I'm done with the guilt trip, okay? I get it. The parents use it.
No guilt trip, it's the truth.
Well, this is the guilt trip you're giving me. So anyways, back to we owe $900,000. When are we going to put a payment structure in place that every month that place pays the taxpayers back the same amount every month? That's my
Derek,
question.
You're comparing to your credit card. I would say yearly, not monthly.
Then yearly. When are we going to start, David?
Again, this is the
Next
first
year, the year after that, when?
This is the first year of it not being non-union, and we can look at that.
If it's non-union, then why do they need so much money? If the budget's going to be the same, why do we got to keep putting the same money in? If we're paying, we're not paying.
We're not.
Union
Though.
people.
It's a different budget, Derek.
There's no health care in there. There's one person with health care.
The employee budget alone, I mean, there's a huge difference. I mean, there's no longevity.
I'm done. I'm done because this is a no-win situation.
Any other questions on the Civic Center budget? Okay. School Department, thank you for being here tonight. And I'll take a roll call vote on this budget as amended tonight.
So I just want to.
Oh, sorry, Kristen, go ahead.
Did I get an answer on the pump? Do we want that at general fund capital, or do we want to adjust the Civic Center budget, adjust their major needs line?
Adjust the major needs line. I think that's the best way to go.
I would agree. It should stay in the Civic Center. We know that, and that'll give us a clearer picture of how things went.
Okay, for Civic Center. So let me just tell you the dollar amount that you're voting on is to amend the general fund budget by $186,090, and adding that to the budget and maintaining a 0% tax increase.
you want to repeat that just for everybody can hear that?
Sure. So the total of the items that were sent, the spreadsheet that I was sent this afternoon, plus the two, the addition of the Arctic redevelopment and the police memorial, that grand total is $186,090 that will be added back to the general fund budget.
So I just want to clarify, it's the Arctic Village Association, just so people are clear.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Arctic. I had Arctic Village redevelopment. Okay, so Arctic Village Association.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, got it, no problem.
Is there any other public comment on the budget? Again, as Kristen said, 0%. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Quick question. We're voting to move the 0% budget forward, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm not going to be the asshole that votes no to move a 0% budget forward, but I strongly disagree with the whole thing with the admin fees regarding the student. So I'm going to vote yes.
Councilman Messier?
I want to vote yes, and I want to thank Kristen and Mark for the hard work, and also definitely thanks to the school department as well. So thank you. And all the department heads, of course.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yeah, I also vote yes. I just want to make sure that everybody understands it's 186,090. Does that include the revenue change? That's the expense side. The fact that the revenues come.
So we don't, so the council votes on an appropriation for expenditures.
Okay. All right,
not
that's
on
fine.
revenues.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Yes, and I agree. Thank you to the schools and all the department heads for working hard at 0%. We said that's what we wanted to get to. And Jason Licciardi, I will make sure that we sit down and come to some resolution about those admin fees at both the sewer plant and the civic center. I'd love to work with you to get that done.
David, can we also clarify to the people that are listening that maybe didn't listen to all our meetings, and let them know that this budget at 0% had nothing to do with any of the potential federal funding that we're going to get through the state.
Correct.
That this was all the hard work of the people of this town putting together this budget.
Yes, and I was going to clarify that.
The bad news is we don't know what that money is yet. We're still waiting. We're in a holding pattern there.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
So with that being said, again, I know everybody already said it. I want to thank everybody who's worked on this budget this year. It's been a very difficult year for the community, a very difficult year for the town itself, as far as the work that we've had to do this year. And I know it's been a little stressful during these times through a pandemic. Added expenses and added expenses to the school department, added expenses to the town, and working thoroughly through this budget. I want to thank everybody, and I vote yes for a 0% on this budget. And with that being said, that is also correct what Councilman Messier said. The town does not know what the federal funds through the CARES Act is going to bring to us. It's been anywhere between 2 million number thrown out there to a $16 million number thrown out there. And there has not been any discussion about restrictions, what it can be used for. And so with that being said, that has nothing to do with this money whatsoever. And this is just strictly our budget, the budget through our revenues and our expenditures. Any other questions on that? Voted 4-0. With that being said, I would take a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Take a 5-minute recess so we can get set up.
Joe, are we staying on this number?
Yeah, Jay, we're staying here for the regular meeting and then the executive is after this and I sent out the link.
I got that
to the okay, I sent them out after we started the public hearing, so that'll be after the regular meeting ends.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Joe, it's Al, how do I listen without being on screen?
You can turn your camera off if you want, Al. On the lower left-hand corner of your screen, there should be a button that
I can
says,
stop it.
yep, there you go.
I can stop it for you, Al. I just shut it off for you. So just remember, you're always, you gotta make sure you gotta mute.
I know. Thanks.
And Dave, when you're ready, this is still live and recording and everything, so.
Yep, as soon as all the councilmen,
Nope, I just wanted to let
council
you know.
people sign back in. Council, let me know when you're ready.
I'm still here. I'm good.
All set.
Just waiting on Councilwoman Williamson,
Not anymore.
and she's back. All righty. All righty, meeting call to order. Today is April 6, 2021, Town Council. It is now 7:13 p.m. Town Council meeting via Zoom. Before we get started, I just want to discuss, I'd like to take a moment of silence. The West Warwick Police Department and the Beltrami family had suffered a loss of Detective Matthew Beltrami. So I would like to take a moment of silence before we start this meeting. And on behalf of the Town Council, our condolences go out to the Beltrami family and the West Warwick Police Department. Thank you. Councilman Messier, will you lead us in prayer?
Thank you, David. I think sometimes it's best before, during, and after these council meetings to take a deep breath and center yourself. So I've chosen this passage from the Book of Awakening. Slowing how we think and feel and take in the world is directly related to being centered. The wisdom traditions all have some form of meditation or prayer that is aimed at slowing us into the center, where the very pace of creation breathes. In their own way, all spiritual practices help us reclaim the centeredness, because being centered in this way plunges us again and again into that unseeable stream in which life is continually vital and refreshed. At the pace of creation, all things breathe the same way. So when we slow and open and center ourselves, we breathe in unison with all of life. And breathing this way, we draw strength from all of life. When we slow down and breathe, we reach like trees into everything open, and whole skies of cloud drift into unison with the dreams of an entire people. If we can slow to the pace of creation, truth will sweep like a flock of birds from the mountains we climb. As the pace of creation, the beginning enters us, and we are new. When courageous enough to relax our soul open, the pace which our mind thinks slows to the pace at which our heart feels, and amazingly together they unfold the rhythm with which our eyes can see the miracle waiting in all that is ordinary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Licciardi will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilman Licciardi,
Here.
Councilman Messier,
Here.
Council Vice President Williamson,
Here.
Council President Goslin.
Here.
Quorum is declared.
Consent agenda.
First item on the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes from the March 9th, 2021 Town Council Workshop and approval of the minutes from the March 16th, 2021 Town Council Executive Session.
Do I have a motion?
Excuse me, I'll make the motion.
My second, sorry, I was waiting for John.
John is not here anymore, unfortunately. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the approval of minutes? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
You're gonna get a drink of water. Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Next is the approval of tax cancellations as requested by the tax collector.
Need a motion?
I'll make the motion.
My second.
Move and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay, next is the request for business licenses. Request from Pizza Nomad LLC doing business as the Pizza Nomad for a victualling house license for premises located at 291 Providence Street. A request from David Fabrizio doing business as Azo's Pizza for renewal of victualling house license for premises located at 250 Coeisa Avenue, Unit 1. Request from Robert Donahue Pizza Incorporated doing business as Donahue's Pizza for renewal of victualling house license for premises located at 1207 Main Street. Request from Daniel Galovitz for renewal of kennel license for premises located at 11 Payan Street. Request from Yvonne Rivas for private detective license. Request from Pamela Hay for renewal of private detective license. Request from Juan Navarro for renewal of private detective license. Request from Samantha Brotman doing business as Be Beautiful by Samantha Brotman for renewal of business license for premises located at 586 Providence Street. And request from Rasni Hull and Sreenak Kim doing business as Perfect Nails in Spa of Rhode Island for renewal of business license for premises located at 289 Coeisa Avenue.
I'm going to recuse myself, David.
Councilman Messier has recused himself. So
I'll
I
move
need
the
a motion.
licenses.
I'll second.
Move in second. Any discussion? Any public discussion on the licenses? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay, under appointments and resignations, resignation of John D'Amico as Town Council Representative for Ward 5.
I'll move the resignation. I'll move the name of John D'Amico.
I will second it with great regret.
What if we vote no?
He's got to come back. He's got to come back.
Now, again, we discussed this last budget hearing. John has always been a great representative for Ward 5. He's always been calm, cool, collective, always listens, always worked with a level head, and he is definitely going to be missed up here. Unfortunately, we didn't get to work live for the last year together, but always had some great phone conversations and whatever. So I wish John and his family the best of luck in his future endeavors.
Absolutely. I want to thank John as well. He helped. He was the first person I talked to when I announced I was going to run. We had a long discussion. He tried talking me out of it. I remember that. So thank you, John, for your time that you put in. It's not an easy job, and he's got to do what's best for his family right now. So wish him the best in his future endeavors as well.
Any other comment? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
Councilman Messier?
No.
You took mine now. Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. If I voted no, then it'd be no, then you have to be bad.
So is that really a 3-to-1 vote? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, appointment of Norman Landrock Jr. as the town moderator.
Move the appointment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Again, Norman's been, we asked him a few years ago to be our town moderator for one time, and he's been lured in every year now. This is for our financial town meeting. Norman does a fantastic job at running the town financial meeting for us. And we are, while we're at it, we are looking at possibly trying to do it live this year. But again, this is for Norman Landros, and I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Appointment of Adam Satchel to the Board of Directors of West Bay Community Action.
I'll move the name of Adam Satchel.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Again, Mark and I have been getting emails probably on a monthly basis. Somebody looking to have Town of West Warwick represent them on West Bay Community Action. Manny Murray did do this for us for many years, and he had to resign going on almost 2 years now. And we have been actively looking for somebody. And at the time, Adam was the senator, so it was kind of difficult for him. Now he's got a little more time on his hands, and I think he'll be a great representative on this board to represent the town of West Warwick. And I know he will probably reach out to Manny also to discuss his role. Any other comment? Hearing none. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Reappointment of Patricia Lally to the Board of Assessment and Review for the term ending March 2024.
I'll move the reappointment.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Congratulations, Patricia, if you're in the crowd.
Moving on to unfinished business, authorization to award contract for LED lighting upgrade to Rise Engineering and National Grid.
Is this for the lights for the ball fields?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. President, this one was previously tabled as we worked on a funding solution, which is still in progress. So
So should we take any action here tonight and just?
I don't believe there's any action for you to take.
All right, we'll disregard this one for tonight. Keep it tabled. New business, Sarah?
Moving on to new business, discussion of town operations impacted by the COVID-19 virus.
Mark?
A few updates. As far as our employees go, we do have one DPW worker that remains out of work and 2 firefighters. Operationally, we're functioning as close to normal as possible. Town Hall is open with slightly reduced hours to facilitate extra cleaning in the morning and afternoon. If Chief Verone is available, he can update on our vaccination process.
Sure. So we have completed today the 75 and over population, and we have the teachers pod on Thursday, and that will complete our municipal vaccination clinic. We have vaccinated near 1,200 people, and as of Thursday, that will be completely vaccinated. So that's about it.
Chief, because you're on the move.
Yes, there's a competition on, if you don't know.
He's carrying the team.
He's out walking, huh? All right, so I think I heard him correctly that 75 and above have been fully vaccinated. And any questions for the chief? Thank you. There's no vote to be taken there, so.
Okay, so discussion of correspondence relative to the tax assessment of the Med Recycler facility located at 1600 Division Road.
Again, I know Alan Palazzo asked some questions in the Q&A, and I told him we would get him the answers. I emailed Alan these answers also, and also put them on the agenda so they're there for record, so he understands that we have them out there for him. Any questions on those answers? Thank you.
Okay, request from Angels in Action Rhode Island for a grant in the amount of $1,500 sponsored by Councilman Licciardi.
I'll move the request.
Second. I put this on the agenda. Deb Rothro had reached out to me a short time ago, and I know Angel in Action is having some trouble due to COVID. And Deb has come to us before, like other organizations, requesting some aid from the town. And I don't know what we have in that account. I know we're in April, so there's only 2 months to go. And typically in the past, we've done a lot of ads, a lot of $100 ads to different organizations, which we haven't done this year because of the COVID and, lack of community events. But if we have $1,500 left, I strongly urge us to support this organization. She's a one-person show for the most part, and it's very vital to the town, especially in the Crompton area. So I'm not quite sure if Deb is on tonight.
Deb is
but if anybody else from the council or Deb wants to speak, go ahead.
Deb, would you like to speak on this? I'm sorry, Deb, you're actually muted. Try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I'm sorry. I didn't know I was unmuted. Yeah, I mean, we're just struggling because we count on fundraisers, to pay our rent. And our last fundraiser was a year and a half ago. We were supposed to have one last March and it got canceled. The venue canceled us. So we used up all the funds that we had in the savings. I actually have 1 month left. And then we're gonna have to close the doors, in which we just started getting busy again. So I don't, we just need some help. I had a lot of volunteers that were seniors and they didn't want to volunteer. Obviously, they couldn't volunteer during COVID, and I only have one volunteer, which is Nicole Knott. So I got a couple more coming in, so hopefully we'll get busy. But it would be really nice to at least give us a couple of months to get back on our feet.
So Deb, can you explain what this 1,500 would do? Like, where's it going?
It would pay it, all of it. Well, it would all pay the rent for the building, because that's really our only expense other than like office supplies and stuff like that. But I can buy that out of my own pocket if I have to.
How much is the rent, Deb?
The rent is 600, which we had no problem paying that up until last year.
So I think Deb does a great job. I've visited the place. I think it's terrific. I'm going to be honest. My only concern is what happens when others start lining up, because there are many organizations that are in similar situations because of the pandemic. So that's my only concern.
Well,
I think we talked about as a council that we weren't in the business necessarily of giving contributions or grants to people outside of the two that we've done right along, which excuse me, what is the Westworld assistance, the food cupboard, and the Veterans Association. So you're right, Jason Licciardi, you talked about how we've supported through having, buying T signs and ads and things like that, because we just had too many organizations starting to come to us asking us for money. And again, we don't necessarily have it either. So that's my only concern, to be honest with you.
We are a nonprofit, but we don't, and nobody gets a paycheck. Nobody goes home with money. There's not enough money to go home with. So every bit of it goes back into the organization, and we help the school kids. And obviously this year was not a good year for the school kids either. So, I mean, this is our last shot to keeping the doors open. But I appreciate it anyways.
The way I see it, it's similar to the AVA and to the PRA. Both nonprofits. We're just giving them $5,000 in our budget each year, and it's worth it. I think it's unique. This agency is unique to every other one because Deb is helping those who are not, they don't fall into a category, so, and it's helping out the kids, for the most part. I've been down there, and it's the kids that go in, it's the teens that go in, it's people who don't qualify for most likely, like, say, food stamps or something like that, but it's the girl who needs a dress for the prom, and she's got a dress for the prom because she goes to Deb, and that's what people don't see, and I think, with the rent in $600 a month, I say give $1,800, but again, I think where does it, if we have the money in the budget, because we've agreed to put it in the budget, I think this is very worthwhile to give it to her.
Kristen, do you know I'm sorry, Kristen, do you know what's in that line item under this? I think it's under town council for what's remaining.
Yeah, 2,500.
And we gave money back. Well, we didn't release all the funding last year, did we?
I believe not. Actually, no, after the adjustment for the parade, it did. I think that took up about the balance.
Which is not a normal thing. So if we
Correct.
didn't have the parade, we had money left over. So
Any other discussion from the council?
Just to clarify, there's 2,500 left in it. And that the other money that we've already given, what's the normal amount that's in that prior to us giving it? Is it 6,000 something?
It's closer to 10.
Close to 10. All right. So we've already given out there's no more if we were to do this, there's no other obligations we have for that money for the rest of this fiscal year, correct?
That's
None that I'm aware of.
Nobody's come forward, so.
Yeah, but I mean, like the food cupboard obviously comes usually in like December, November, October.
Food cupboard and the veterans have been already taken care of this year.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Then I don't have a problem with it. I mean, and this is not, this isn't a yearly ask. She's asking for a one-time, correct, Jason or Deb?
I've asked before. You guys gave me some, I think it was 500 a couple of years ago.
No, but you're just asking for this one, you're asking for it for a one-time. I mean, you're not asking for it like a yearly thing. You're asking for a one-time right now,
Yeah.
correct?
We're just trying to get back on our feet. I mean, this year, we gave away most of the stuff. I had West Bay called me quite often this year and asked me to help them. So I helped them out. And then the school social workers are calling me. So, I mean, pretty much everything we've done this year was for free. So we weren't taking in, I mean, we weren't open all that much because of the volunteers, and that's what hurt us, but the fundraising, but we gave away just about everything. So, and then we had a couple of house fires, people that we've helped. But we also have, all of a sudden now I've got social workers from Women and Infants Hospital calling me, new mothers who, left the hospital with nothing. They're sending them to me. So it's been a really busy year, but just not financially good.
So I don't have a problem with this, but I do fully agree with Mary Beth. And I know we talked about this before about going forward, just having some kind of a criteria, whether it's filling out some kind of a form. I think that's what you had talked about in the past, Mary Beth, right? Maybe some kind of what the organization is and what you're looking for.
And that's what we started the conversation. And I think at the end of the day, quite honestly, and again, I think the organization does a lot of great work. But I also believe there are other organizations in town that are nonprofit and people don't take salaries. And when do we stop? So when they knock on our door, I think that's the direction we decided to go. Yeah, we do the food cupboard, we do the veterans, and then we're not going to do what we've done in the past because we don't have the money to give money away to charities. But I understand it's an unusual year, but it has been for a lot of different organizations. I certainly would not ever agree to having it be a yearly thing. I mean, that's not.
Yeah, but I agree. I think because Jason said it too. We had the extra because it was an unusual year. We had those certain things that we would have normally. I mean, if it was a normal year, we probably would have already spent it because it would have been used for all the, whether the programs we sponsor and different things like that. So.
But just keep in mind though, until we change it, because we talk about changing it, but until we actually change it, and put this in writing of what exactly this money is going to be used for, if we're budgeting for the same amount, then next year we may have a different organization come to us and request a 1,500 or 500, or we may have 5 different organizations come to us. It's going to happen if we keep it like it is. And if we keep it like it is,
I think that we I think we did, as a council, agree to change it. Maybe we didn't put it in writing. I agree with you, but I think we did agree that we weren't going to do that. The only two that we were going to support, other than in a advertising type way, was the food cupboard, which helps, so many families here in West Warwick, and the veterans. I mean, I thought that was our agreement. You're right. Did we do a resolution? No. Did we?
No, but I didn't think we finalized anything, because if that was the case, we would have given a set amount to the food bank, a set amount to the veterans, and that would have been it.
No, I disagree. I think we did want money to support a whole host of other nonprofits in a smaller manner, not necessarily.
Advertising, right?
Correct.
Okay, but
correct.
So we should have an advertising line.
No, I think it's all in.
Do you have that in front of you? I'm sorry, I don't. I know Mary Beth, I know we talked quite a bit about it for 2 years. I'm just not quite sure where we are, that's all.
So Councilman, just to
I'm
give you a
sorry.
heads up, I'm sorry, just to give you a heads up, in our budget, we have 10,000 for contribution nonprofit organizations. And we have 2,000, advertisements and scholarships. We have 2,000 in our budget. And that's also in this year's and last year's budget.
So the 10,000 was for the breakdown for the veterans, which I believe they come to us for 1,500, I think.
So yeah, it was I think it was 6,000 and 1,500 this year. 6,000 for the food cupboard and 1,500 for the veterans.
So that leaves us
think that's correct.
So that leaves us $2,500 for what though? That's my question. So if nobody comes to us and then all of a sudden in May we have $2,500 over, and somebody says, "Can I get the 2,500?"
You put it back in the general fund.
But if they request a need, how do you say no? And we can cross that bridge when we come to it. That's different. I think I'm getting off task. And I apologize. Should we just vote on this?
I will take if there's any other comment from Deb or the council.
No, I'm all set.
Deb, do you plan on having any fundraise? I know it's a very difficult time to have fundraisers, but do you plan on having any fundraisers anytime soon?
Yeah, as soon as they open up and we already have some in mind of what we're gonna do, but we want to make sure that at least everybody's vaccinated so people will show up. I mean, even if the venue lets us have it, we want to make sure that we get a crowd,
Okay, understand.
We're hoping, by June, July, we'll be able to do this.
Thank you. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
It's a struggle. I'm going to say yes, but I want to remind everybody. So when the next person comes, are we going to say no? You know what? I'm going to say no. I'm going to stick with my guns. Deb, it's nothing against your organization. I'm going to say no.
Wow. I was with the no too. Because if it was, Deb, the only reason I'd say that is because if the taxpayer is saying we're paying somebody's rent, I'm a little hesitant. I'm willing to donate to you tomorrow.
I'll be there myself. That's right.
I'm willing to give you $100 out of my pocket tomorrow. I just have a tough time when if a taxpayer comes up and asks me if I'm paying rents for everybody. And that's my only concern.
I will work to help you raise the money. I mean, we can come up with ways to do that, but coming out of the town coffers, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm sorry.
Well, there's our first tie is 2-2 is a no, unfortunately.
So just to clarify, that money is going back into the general fund if nobody requests it.
Correct.
Okay.
Update from the DPW director regarding Factory Street Playground.
Don?
Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Okay. We've got almost all of the mulch removed. We have the caps for the fence, and that we'll probably put in next week. We're in the process of ordering gravel to put in there. We have a engineering firm that'll come in and do the Proctor test, which is a test to measure the density. We're pretty much ready to move on this. We had an inspector from the DEM come down, and she did verify in an email that we don't have to put an ADA compatible walkway from the sidewalk on Factory Street up. It's one of the unreasonable clauses. You can't make Factory Street ADA compatible. Therefore, you don't have to have that as an ADA access. And we're just, the asphalt plant's open pretty much today. And so we're probably planning on getting the parking lot done in the next 2 weeks. And that's pretty much where we stand.
To supplement that a little bit, Council Vice President Williams and I met up there with some partners and looked and discussed the recommendation, and eventually, hopefully very soon, I'll provide a recommendation to go with the poured surface with some potential funding mechanisms for that. I have 2 quotes. They have in what I consider some conflicting information in them. So in order to be able to compare apples to apples, we may have to do an RFP unless I can work my way through this. But I should have that prepared prior to the next meeting.
So we did have a couple of meetings, and as Don said, Denise Willem from the governor's office came out and actually was very pleased with what she saw. We felt it was important that she, in writing, tell us that we did not have to comply with one of the requests, I think in a December 4th letter from Bob Cooper. She did indeed, actually, she did indeed say that that was not necessary, that we did not have to comply with that. She looked at the playground. She thought the way the equipment was set up was terrific. She talked about how she was very pleased with if we could find the money to do a poured in place, that's the way it should go. You all saw an email to that effect. And that's a process that we're going through now to come up with exactly how that's going to be funded. The original contractor is a master pricing agreement participant. However, I think that, and Mark, that's what you're talking about, that cost is a little bit higher perhaps than a second vendor that came in and gave a price, maybe by about $10,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I think we're trying to work through what that process is.
Are we gonna end up, when do you think that the playground will be completed and functional for our children of Westworld and the parents?
I think you're looking at 6 to 8 weeks, and it's more about temperature than anything else. I think we need another week or so to put the gravel in and get the compaction done. The Parking lot will be done by others, so it's really, other than putting the bollards in, that'll be done by a contractor. The flowable will be done by a contractor, and they typically don't do that until mid-May to mid-June. Temperature, I believe, has to be 50 or 55 degrees.
Any other questions for Don? I don't know why am I. All right. Thank you, Don.
Thanks.
New business 05, authorization to purchase one new 2021 Ford Transit Connect XL and a 2021 Ford F-250 pickup truck in an amount not to exceed $54,027.
Move the authorization.
Second.
Moving second, any questions?
Actually, I don't know if the town manager wanted to talk about that just a little bit.
Certainly. So then Chief Richard Silver had made a capital improvement plan and changed the way that we assessed and replaced our fleet quite a few years ago. We started working on a program where our detail funding would pay for our cruisers so we do not have to request capital funds. And that has worked successfully for years. So our 10-year capital improvement plan typically allows to infuse the department with 3 to 4 vehicles a year, sometimes with 2 or 3 marked patrol cars, since they're the ones that get used the most. And infusing 1 or 2, depending on need, support type vehicles. This year and currently requesting you to approve the purchase of 2 support vehicles, one being our animal control van, which I'm proposing one of those small Ford Transit Connects. I think that's most appropriate. We used to have a full-size van, and that has since been sent to another department, and a temporary vehicle was just taken out of service within the last month. The second vehicle would be a regular cab Ford F-250 that would be used as a multi-purpose utility vehicle. Primarily, we're looking to eventually transition away from what you see out back as a BCI van and move to a trailer type system that could be multi-purpose for many uses, and have the appropriate vehicle to get it where it needs to go. So both of these are being sought after using the Greater Boston Public Police Council pricing agreement. We've used that numerous times in the past through MHQ out of Marlborough, Massachusetts.
Any questions for Mark on that?
And if I didn't say it again, the funding source would be our police car detail fund in the amount of $54,027.
Thank you. No other comment? I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
New business item 06, the first reading of ordinance 2021-06, authorizing the town of Westworld to finance the design, construction, repair, rehabilitation, and improvement of streets and sidewalks in the town, including but not limited to paving, drainage, traffic control devices, safety improvements, and landscaping by the issuance of not more than $7 million bonds and or notes therefore.
I'll move the ordinance.
Second.
Moving second, discussion. Mark, you just want to touch base on this with Al? Who wrote the ordinance, actually?
This is the first reading of the ordinance that sets us up for the road bond vote during the all-day referendum. It was drafted by our bond counsel, similar to the one that was presented a few years back. The requirement for us to submit this to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation along with our plan to move forward.
I was not involved in that, David.
Thank you. Any questions for Mark on this? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi,
Yes.
Councilman Messier,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Upcoming appointments. Sewer Use Board of Review, 1 alternate member, vacancy with a term to expire on 10/2021, and 2 vacancies with a term to expire 10/2023. The Pension Committee has 2 vacancies with terms to expire November 18th, 2022 and November 18th, 2021. The Recreation Committee has 1 vacancy. We have a vacancy of Tree Warden. The West Bay Community Action Board, West Warwick representative, 1 vacancy. I believe you guys filled that tonight. The Board of Assessment and Review, 1 term to expire March 2024. I believe you also filled that one this evening. West Warwick Public Library Trustees, 1 with a term to expire of February 2024. But the Patuxent River Authority, 1 term to expire on June 30th, 2021. The Planning Board, 2 openings with a term to expire July 2021. The Zoning Board of Review, 2 terms expiring on July 2021. And on to public forum. This portion of the meeting is designated the Town Council's open meetings for citizens to address comments to the Town Council relating to matters affecting the public business. Comments will only be addressed to the Town Council, who will take them under advisement. When addressing the Town Council, please state your name and address. Please conduct yourself in an orderly and respectful fashion. The comments of citizens assessing this portion of the meeting are neither adopted nor endorsed by this body, but heard as requested. Members of the Town Council, being the duly elected public body as identified in Rhode Island General Law 42-46-2, 3, have no obligation to respond to the public's comments.
Is there any public comment? I see a hand up in the audience. Helene Tay, if you just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, this is Helene Tay, 650 East Greenwich Avenue. And I was just wondering if there is any physical reason why a ADA compliant pathway cannot be created between Factory Street and the playground. In other words, is there some law of physics or some barriers to making that happen?
Are you saying from Factory Street to the playground or from the playground parking lot to the playground?
Yeah, the parking lot to the playground.
They are making that happen. Just waiting on the weather.
Yeah, I think what was talked about is from Factory Street to the playground. We'll not have one. The slope is too severe to be able to do that. Would be difficult. And actually, there aren't sidewalks, or are there on Factory Street? Maybe
there are sidewalks, but no legal parking.
Okay, so nobody would be okay.
So they would have to park it. They would have to park in the parking lot, and then the pathway would be from the parking lot.
Yeah, thank you. That makes a lot more sense now. Thank you.
Thank you, Helene. Any other public comment?
Actually, David, if I may, I would like to note that I know we welcomed Sarah at the last meeting, but the change in format in the agenda that she and Paula worked on, thank you very much for working hard on that, and easy to follow. I appreciate it. And I know that we had some conversations last week and you wanted to change everything in the world in a week. And that was probably a little unreasonable, but it looks terrific. And thank you very much.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
I see Pete Cottrell who just raised his hand. Pete, just state your name and address for the record.
David, can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Good evening, Peak Trail 25 Nowicki Street. I have a question. I don't know if solicitor Tim Williamson is in the audience. I can't see, but I'll ask anyway. At what point can the town council interact with its constituents as far as med recycling goes? Because at the end of the day, the vote that you guys are going to be coming forth to either approve or disapprove is the constituents' votes. And I feel that we're being shunned out as constituents because we're not being heard.
So Pete, I just want to reiterate that everybody thinks it's coming before the town council. It's going before the planning board.
Right, I understand it's going before the planning board now. That's just for their permits. But at the end of the day, the four of you and maybe five, whenever this comes, the five of the council are going to be the ones that's going to be approving a business license for this facility.
So that business license does not mean they cannot perform business in the town. That business license is just for record that they are doing business in town. And the reason why the business licenses were implemented was a yearly fee. And actually the first initial year is $100. The second is when they come for their business license on a yearly basis. That's so their inspections are getting done and whatever. That business license, and unfortunately, there's probably a lot of businesses out there in West Warwick right now that we may not even have a business license. And that's just for record that they are doing business in town. That does not stop them from doing business in the town per se.
So the planning board is the one that can either approve or disapprove this facility from opening. Is that what you're saying?
They can approve or disapprove. Yes.
Okay. So that goes on to my next question is, I guess this would be for Mr. DiFiore, seeing how he brought it up last night in reference to the extension. The way that I understand it and have been told is that they can deny, the planning board can receive the extension, but doesn't have to approve the extension. Is that correct or incorrect?
Incorrect. The state statute provides that once a master plan has been granted, which it was in this case, the occupation with a master plan approval at the end of their 2 years has the right to 2 one-year extensions. After those extensions are merely for them to go forward with their process. It has nothing to do with the approval. So the state statute, as I said, grants 2 one-year approvals. And off the top of my head, I believe at the end of that time, in order to get any further extension, they have to show cause for why they would need the extension. But what was done last night was purely ministerial because that's what the statute says. Not our ordinance follows the statute, or I should say our planning regulations follow the statute, but we are mandated on that. No control over it.
I watched the video today, and from my view, I think the planning board was very uncomfortable with voting the way that they had to vote. But that's just my opinion. I may see it different than other people, but I just think that they could have. Let's ask the question: what's happened? What would happen if they rejected that extension?
Mr. President, this matter is not appropriately before the town council. This matter is a planning board matter. And Mr. Cottrell could have asked those questions last night, but this isn't properly before you. And any answers that may or may not be given could have some impact, positive and or negative in the future. So I would suggest that these questions not be answered. This matter no longer be discussed.
I hear what you're saying, Tim, and I agree it's not on the thing. I just do want to say, Pete, to one thing that you said is that you feel that you're not being heard. Trust me, I know that I've spoken to other members of the council. We're all listening and we're all taking everything in. We're learning as much as we can about it.
But that's
people are being heard. People are being heard, Pete.
Where are they being hurt? I mean, and that's, you know, I understand what Timmy's saying, but I mean, it to me, not being able to talk with yourself or David or Jay or Jason, it just seems, I got to say, it just seems shady that we can't consult with our council over something.
So Pete, I'm sorry to cut you off, but let me say, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable whatsoever. I may not be able to respond. I may be able to give you my personal opinion. I have received numerous emails. I'm actually trying to catch up with the amount of emails that I caught on MedRecycler, and I've caught both approval and disapproval. And I thank them for the email. They are being, listened to. And unfortunately, this town council cannot have any persuasion on the planning board whatsoever. They're an autonomous board. They make the decision. And right now it's still in Rhode Island DEM's hands. And at that point, I personally have to wait to see if it gets through even DEM. At that point, I don't want to make comment, and it may or may not get through there. We don't know.
In my honest opinion, I hope it don't. That's just my opinion. I'm sure it's many other people's opinion. But I mean, I understand where Timmy's coming from. It's not on the agenda, but for the record, I've asked several times for it to be on the record to be discussed. So, I mean, I'll end it there. I do have one question. I came in late to the budget hearing, and David, what did you say that the increase would be?
0%.
You're stuck with me for another year, David.
It's 4.2%. Oh.
But thank you, Council, for listening to my questions and my concerns. I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, Pete. I have 2 more hands up in the audience. Derek, just state your name and address for the record.
Derek, 62 Andrews Ave. David, I gotta ask you, what, as a business owner, why do we have to pay for a business license if it's not technically a license? It's just for record. Why can't we just make a record? Why do I gotta pay for that?
Time and labor.
Time and labor to do what?
Inspections, entering into the system, making sure you pay your taxes. That was why that was implemented about 6 to 8 years ago.
So my taxes don't cover labor and material?
No.
Well, I mean, you say that you don't need a license to do business in the town. I just wondered why we call it a business license.
Again, Mr. President, this matter is not before the council appropriately. I'm sure there would be other people in town that may want to discuss this if it was on an agenda item. So since it's not on the agenda item, again, I would suggest that this matter not go further.
Mr. Solicitor, I understand I didn't ask you the question, so I appreciate your professionalism, but without a contract, I don't think he has to listen to you. The next thing is, why can't council members respond to the constituents' emails about that med recycling? Is there a potential gag order in place again?
Rita, I can speak for myself. I've responded to about 70% of them, and I'm actually trying to catch up on them. So including Mr. Palazzo's emails last time. So I try to answer as many questions as I can. And again, Med Recycler has a due process, and that is owed to them, and they have to go through the process. That's all I can say at this point.
I'm just referring to the answers you were giving Pete, that's all.
I think I was straightforward with Pete.
You were, but you raised a couple of questions, so I asked them. Have a nice night.
Thank you. Have a good night. Any other public comment? Hearing none, it's not a motion to adjourn. Unfortunately, it's a motion to move into executive session. So if somebody wants to make that motion.
We'll make a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
And just to go over that executive session is, and I'm not sure who has the agenda in front of them. It's Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5, collective bargaining or litigation. Number 1, Royal Mills versus Secotio. Number 2, Quaker West Corp versus Secotio. Number 3, Moriarty versus West Warwick, KC 2014-0267. Number 4, Local 1104 International Association of Firefighters. Number 5, Local 312 International Brotherhood of Police Officers. Number 6, Rhode Island Council 94, ASME AFL-CIO. So I have a motion in a second. We'll be in executive, so I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Lichardi?
Yes.
Councilman Messier? I think he already left, but he's going into executive session.
No,
Councilwoman
yes, I'm still here.
Okay, Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And so just for everybody to know, this feed will still be on and you will be live. So if you happen to be sitting in this venue, make sure, be careful what you say or do, because you are live.
Guess who's back? Back again.
Oh, great. Now he went from Reverend Messier to Rapper Messier.
Yeah, but a man wear many different hats. You know what I'm saying? I don't know which New England hat to wear lately because they all suck. So
All right, we're back in public, so I just need a motion to move into public session.
make a motion to
I'll make
move into public. Oops, sorry. Go, Jason.
Yeah, I just made the motion.
I second.
I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi,
Yes, here.
Councilman Messier,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Here.
and I'm here. Well, it's a yes, because we need a
Yes,
motion.
it was a yes, exactly. I didn't wanna,
Yes, I'm here.
Come on, get
Yes.
pumped up. Come on.
yeah.
It's a long night. We get it.
All right, does somebody want to seal the minutes?
I would make
Make
a
a
motion
motion.
to seal the minutes of the executive session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi,
Yes.
Councilman Messier,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. And whoever wants to go home. Oh, you're all home.
Jay Messier, you're up.
Yeah, I am home, but I'm still going to make a motion to adjourn.
That would be a second.
Roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi,
Yes, aye.
Councilman Messier.
Wait, we're doing a roll call vote on yes.
Yup, Sarah's correcting me. I'm sorry.
Uh,
Councilwoman Williamson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Have a good night, everybody.
Good
All
night,
right, good night.
everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Good night.